Hello, good afternoon and welcome to today's edition of The Pulse. We're live on the JoyNews channel on our studios here from Kokomlemle on your digital terrestrial TV because we are free to air. We're also on your DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 144. And this is your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. This afternoon, pharmacists under attack. We'll tell you the sad reality of our ambulance have turned their guns on community pharmacists with nearly 20 deaths and robberies this year alone. We also have an update on the Bawku chieftaincy conflict after a Peace Council mediation team withdrew from the area after being caught up in the clashes. We're live in neighboring Northeast region where some persons connected to the violence have been making some demands. Also this afternoon, we'll take a peek into the world of politics and specifically to the NPP leadership. We have a conversation with the political scientists on the race. I am Emefa Apau and this is The Pulse brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu, affordable, safe sanitation. Remember, we're also streaming live on YouTube and all our social media platforms. You can tweet at us with the hashtag The Pulse. We're right back with details. Many thanks for your company this afternoon once again on The Pulse. We start off from Bawku in the Upper East region where officials of the National Peace Council dispatched to Bawku to aid in mediation efforts aimed at ending the decades-old chieftaincy conflict in the area have returned to Accra after they were caught in a crossfire of the warring factions. Now, there have been renewed fighting between the factions with gunshots reported, leading to the loss of lives and destruction of properties as well. We can hear from my colleague, Albert Sorry, shortly, but this is the situation. We can hear from the Peace Council.
The team arrived in the morning when there was gunshot, and so they could not do the mediating work that they were supposed to do. They went along with some CSOs who've been partnering with us as far as the work is concerned. They met the regional minister and some other dignitaries in the north in what can be done. We are hoping that after today, the situation will be clearer because one of the festivals was supposed to have been celebrated today. As at now, we have no word as to what is happening now. But after today, if the situation remains calm, then the team might go back to see what we can do to help resolve the problems there. Yeah, we had a peace advisory team that is in Bawku. Unfortunately, the key person who was leading the team died a few weeks ago, and so that disrupted our operations a little bit. But we hope to get them back together. But whilst we do this, we think that there's a need for a holistic resolution of the problem. And so we'll be getting in touch with the Ministry of Chieftaincy Affairs because it's purely a chieftaincy matter. So once we resolve the situation and there is peace, there's a need to resolve the chieftaincy issue so that this thing will be done once and for all. So we'll be liaising with all those partners to ensure that we bring lasting solution to the problem that is in the area.
That's the Chief Council there, Peace Council rather, on the situation in Bawku. Well, in a related development, police in the Northeast region have beefed up security in Nalerugu and Gambaga following the renewed chieftaincy violence between Mamprusis and Kusasis in Bawku that we've been talking about. According to the police, the move is to forestall any reprisal as tensions continue to rise in the two Mamprusi towns following the killing of two natives of Gambaga and arrest of elders of the Mamprugu kin. My colleague Ilyasu Tanko earlier came through with this report.
Well, we understand two gentlemen that died in the violence that started yesterday on Monday. They were natives of Gambaga, and so the Gambaga youth are agitating for the killing of these two young men. And in Nalerugu as well, we understand that some elders at the Overlord Palace were sent to Bawku. On their way back, they were arrested. According to our sources, they were arrested by police in the Bolgatanga and have since been transferred on the orders of the national security. So we understand these two elders of the Nairi are currently with the national security in Accra. And so that has also sparked agitation in the Nalirgu town as well. As I speak to you now, the two towns are very tense. I can see youth coming on motorbikes riding from Gambaga to Nalirgu, and there are also dozens of youth currently massed at the Chief Palace, the Overlord Palace, and also some youth have also massed at the Regional Coordinating Council. And the police are saying that it's a very tense situation, and that's exactly what is happening here. As I speak to you now, people are reluctant to come out because yesterday in the night, the youth had earlier besieged the Chief Palace, demanding the release of these two palace elders. And this morning again, they have besieged at the palace, demanding that these palace elders be released. They are threatening mayhem and chaos as well.
Yeah.
And like I said, the situation is not different in Gambaga as well. The youth there are also very agitated, massing up at the Gambaga Chief Palace and also demanding justice for the two individuals that died in the violence in Bawku.
That's my colleague Ilyas Otanko with that earlier report. Well, it's emerging now that the Interior Ministry has imposed a curfew on the Bawku area. So the statement that has been issued a while ago talks about that new curfew that has been imposed. We know that every time that curfew has been reviewed, but the latest today is what we are hearing about. This particular curfew has been imposed on Bawku. Earlier also we interacted with the MP for Bawku Central, Mahama Yariga, who mentioned that its relative calm has been restored. So you can see that statement there on your screens, talking about the imposition of curfew on Bawku municipality and its environs in the Upper East region. So the Minister for Interior has by executive instrument renewed the curfew hours imposed on Bawku, and it's from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. effective today, Wednesday, December 29, 2021. So government calls on the chiefs, elders, opinion leaders, youth, and people of the area to exercise restraint in the face of the challenges confronting them, as well as to use non-violent means to channel their energies into ensuring peace. Meanwhile, there's a total ban on all persons in the aforementioned communities and their environs from carrying arms, ammunition, or any offensive weapon for that matter. And that's that statement issued by the Interior Ministry. Well, I'll take you live now to the Northeast region, where my colleague Ilyas Otanko joins us now via phone on the latest situation, because as a result of what's happening in the Upper East region, we're told that security has been beefed up in the Northeast region. But first, Ilyasu, let's quickly draw the link between what's happening in Bawku as against the security situation that has to be beefed up in the Northeast region.
Well, we know that the Nalirgu is the capital of the Mamprusi traditional area. That's where the overlord is currently. And so anytime there's a security situation in terms of in relation to this particular chieftaincy violence, we always see some spillover activity in Nalirgu, and that's exactly what is happening with this particular renewal of the violence in the Bawku area. As we speak right now, the youth of Nalirgu are still at the Chief Palace, the Overlord Palace. They are asking that the Overlord quickly intervene for the immediate release of some of his elders that allegedly were sent to Bawku to officiate a funeral ceremony. And according to our information, these palace elders were sent there, and on their way back home, they were arrested in Bolgatanga and have since been airlifted to Accra by the national security, we are told. And so the youth are agitated. They feel that this is a disrespect to the authority of the Mamprugu king. And so they are asking for the removal of these palace elders. And then in Gambaga, where we understand that during the violence, which started on Monday night, two persons out of the 9 deaths that have since been recorded were natives of Gambaga, and that have sparked agitation by the youth there. We understand these 2 gentlemen were caught up and they were brutally murdered in the Bawku town. And so that has triggered the tension in the Gambaga town as well. But this morning, the youth of both towns had massed up in various locations, and some were actually mobilizing to carry out revenge attacks. But the regional minister, who led other members of the Security Council, met with the authorities in the area. He first of all went to the chief imam of the Northeast region, who is based in Gambaga, and spoke with the chief imam. Our understanding is that those young men that were killed, allegedly, were family members of the chief imam. So the regional minister and the members of the Security Council met him and spoke with him. And from there, they went to the chief palace, the Gambaga chief palace, where they met with the chief and his elders and also spoke with them. And they assured them that they were going to keep the youth under control. But unfortunately, the minister has not been able to come to Nalirgu, the regional capital, and he has since left for Waliwali. He has gone back to Waliwali. My understanding is that he's preparing to go to Accra to see how he can intervene for the removal or for the release of the elders of the Nairi, which is causing a lot of tension in town. And so as we speak right now, there has been calm and easy calm, though, in the Gambaga township, and particularly in the Nalirgu township, where the youth are still very peeved about the arrest of these elders of the Nairi. But in Gambaga, there have been some semblance of calm, and Nalirgu as well. The youth are starting to leave the chief palace, although some of them are still there. And so, yes, the Regional Security Council has been able to bring some semblance of calm in these 2 towns.
Well, but that's interesting. It appears that we are still yet to hear from the police or the Regional Security Council officially on this particular situation, even though you are in the Northeast region. What exactly are you picking up when it comes to these conflicts in the Upper East region?
Well, we understand that there's an ongoing festival in the Upper East region. Because of the situation there, there have not been enough information coming in to the Nalirgu here where I am. But we understand that there some kind of activity ongoing in there. We also understand that there have been some curfew imposed in that area from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Okay.
That's what we are picking up. And also there have been engagements both here in Nalirgu and in Bawku.
But Ilyasu, though, what is the talk among residents where you are in terms of this particular development? We've talked about the curfew amongst others. What exactly would you say is a talk among residents on this renewed violence?
Well, like I said, in Gambaga and Nalirgu, there's an outpouring of anger by the youth here. And we have begun to see some armed police personnel on the streets of Nalirgu particularly. We've seen police armed and patrolling the town as well. People have gathered, and you could see them talking about this particular incident, and you could see people expressing anger, particularly about the rest of the palace elders. And they are saying that the only way to ensure permanent calm is for these particular elders to be released wherever they are. Okay.
Well, Ilyasu Tanko, great reporting there. Thank you very much for that reporting from the Northeast region, even though the curfew also has been imposed in the Bawku and some municipalities. We've been interacting with the MP for Bawku Central, Mahama Yariga, who tells us about some arrests that have been made already, and then also the fact that relative calm has been restored to the area. We're still monitoring the situation in Bawku. As and when we get it, we'll bring it to you. But away from Bawku, the Community Practice Pharmacists Association of Ghana is raising concerns about the alarming rate of armed robberies against its members in parts of the country. The group at a news conference today said their members have been attacked at least 17 times this year alone, with some members facing the ordeal twice. They want the police to provide them some protection. They say they'll be left with no option than to shut the pharmacies if they do not get the protection they need. Let's bring in the president of the national chairman of the association, Dr. Emmanuel K. Ireland there. We're grateful for your time. He's joining us via Zoom. Let's talk about these attacks up to 17 times. With some of your members experiencing it more than twice? Tell us a bit more.
Let me use this opportunity to say good afternoon to your cherished viewers. Yes, in 2021 alone, we've had 17 different, robbery attacks on our pharmacies across the country. The highest being in Greater Accra, and then followed by the Ashanti region. In Greater Accra alone, it constitutes 64%, and that of Ashanti 24%, followed by Central region, Brong-Ahafo, and then Western region. Now, it is so worrying that just last week, one would have thought that due to the pandemic, pharmacists are at the forefront fighting for our country and making sure that our people receive quality, good health care. Only to find out that armed robbers are also planning against that. This colleague of ours, which actually broke a situation that broke the camel's back in the Ashanti region, in the evening around 9 p.m., he was waiting in his car for his staff to close for them to leave, only to find two guys walking into the pharmacy as if they were going to buy or receive some care. And then at gunpoint, they shot, they had a warning shot. All the staff were on the floor. And they did what they had to do, took away all the booty and the money that they wanted. So when they were walking out, they saw this, our colleague in his car, and they shot him in the tummy, and that's in the stomach. And also shot into the four tires of his car to render him, just not being able to pursue them or go for care. But God being so good, he managed, to persevere. He held on, took the car, drove the car to Confanochi, teaching hospital. And that is where he's receiving care. He had surgery. And currently, as I'm talking to you, he's still on admission. The staff up to now, they are in shock. They cannot work. Now, we also have some of our colleagues who have been attacked 5 times in 1 year. 5 times. And it is very, very worrying. One person 5 times, another pharmacy 5 times. So it is so worrying that if we are the forefront, now we have Omicron surging, and at the peril of our lives. When anybody has any, disease of common occurrence or any condition in the community, the first port of call is the pharmacy.
Yeah.
What if that you go there and the place is shut down or nothing is going on in your community? What do you do?
So with that being brought to the fore, we know the situation now as it stands. How then are we hoping to resolve it at this point? What can be done?
Is the reason we are appealing to the law enforcement agencies. We are appealing to the IGP that he should try to instruct his men to come to our aid. Every community pharmacy in Ghana must receive some level of protection because as it is now, we are afraid for our lives. In any case, most of us are also working 24 hours just because we want to be there for the community. Even they themselves, they come to patronize our services. What if they come and we are not there? So we are appealing to IGP to do something about it. We are also waiting to the MMDCs, the regional and the district security council. They should come together and see how best they can help us.
Okay, but prior to this appeal today, as you're putting out, have there been any such engagement with the law enforcement agencies? And as members, are you taking up your own security as well whilst you wait to engage the Ghana Police Service? Because some would say it's unrealistic for every community pharmacy, for instance, to get police protection. In the interim, is there a measure that you're putting in place?
Yes, we have written to the IGP, we have written to the Interior Minister, we have written to all MMDCs across the country. And we have also appealed to and encouraged our members to also take their security into their own hands, ensure that they have CCTV cameras, also have some security personnel on the premise, and then also make sure that there is some kind of alarm system that would help to trigger some kind of response. And so yes, we are doing what we can, but see. These people are very sophisticated. You don't know when they are coming. They do their homework before they come. And what they are even most afraid of is that beyond that, they can also train us or trace us to our homes. Okay, and so it is so worrying that we are not seeing that every community pharmacy to receive police protection. But then we are in the community with them. So they should try and then, keep this patrol. We are raising this because it's a matter of concern. Very soon it will assume a national, already it's a national, we are national in character. We have pharmacies in all the 16 regions in the country. And so obviously it's getting to a national security issue. But then they should come to our aid and make sure that at least even if they are patrolling around now, they know that we are under attack. Yeah. So every pharmacy has become a threat. They should just try and help us as far as our security is concerned.
But have you had any favorable response? I don't know how long ago you've written to the IGP and the MMDCs and the ministers. Have we had any response as yet from them on your request?
Not yet. I must say that we have, in fact, they received that very nicely. When in their offices, even though we didn't meet them themselves, but then we know the IGP, for instance, delivered the letter in his office to his secretary. So I'm sure by now he knows about what we're talking about.
Okay. Are we giving any timelines in terms of that favorable response? Because I'm hearing that you may be forced to withdraw your services in these areas that the robberies are prone.
Yes, we want to see some action within a week. Because these people are at work throughout this Christmas holidays into the new year. Nobody knows who is going to be next. In fact, we could have lost our colleague. We don't want to sit down and lose another colleague, before we start doing something. As I'm speaking to you, COVID-19 has already claimed the very nicest farm brains we have in the pharmaceutical society and in the Community Practice Pharmacists Association. We don't want to lose any more through armed robbery.
Okay, hold it there. I would want to pry more into the issue about the COVID-19 claiming the lives of some of your members. But you mentioned that you're hoping to get a response during a week. If that does not happen, what happens?
Yes, our life, as I say, we are afraid for our lives. As I'm talking to you, some are, traumatized, and they are receiving some kind of counseling, in one form or the other. They cannot go to work. That place is not operating. What happens to the people in the community when they need pharmaceutical care? And so that is why we are appealing. We are just appealing to the law enforcement agencies to make sure that at least we have that level, some level of security to go about our businesses.
And just quickly before I let you, Dr. Ireland, you mentioned that apart from robbery, also claiming some of the lives of your members, COVID is also, ravaging your association as well. What's the extent? How serious is it? How many of your members are we looking at?
In the last year alone, I don't have the statistics with me, but I know we lost a couple, probably about 5 of our very respectable and best brains within the pharmaceutical sector.
Well, we'll leave it here for now. Dr. Ireland will be following up on it a bit more. We're grateful. That's Dr. Emmanuel K. Ireland with the Community Pharmacies Association. They're raising concerns about armed robbery attacks, recent armed robbery attacks, and they're hoping something will be done about the situation soon, else they'll be forced to withdraw their services. Now, a few days ago, we'll turn attention to politics I'm talking about now. The New Patriotic Party was in the Ashanti region. We brought you extensive coverage here at your election headquarters for their annual delegates conference. One of the key things that was echoed at the conference was winning the next election. They call it breaking the 8, and that's where that phrase also gained the peak of its popularity. We had heard about it. But the question still remains whether the NPP will be a formidable team in the 2024 elections, or a formidable party, some would say. My colleague Benjamin Akakpo has been interacting with senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Kobi Mensah. He has some interesting thoughts on NPP's chances in the 2024 elections and who will be the best presidential candidate for the party, even though the party claims that official campaigning has not begun because they have not opened the floodgates for that to happen. But already a number of names have been bandied around. Let's listen to Dr. Kobi Mensah.
Thank you so much for joining us. In recent times, the NPP held its delegates conference from the constituency level to the regional level and then the national level in Kumasi at the Heroes Park, Babayara Sports Stadium. But some questions remain about what was held, the relevance of the entire occasion, the pomp and pageantry, yes, but what were the gains of that entire enterprise? And moving forward, what should the NPP as a party do to be able to break the 8, which was one of the focal areas for discussion on the day? What do they do? Well, we're going to be having an interaction with someone who follows this space and who is going to be sharing his thoughts on whether the NPP can in fact break the 8. Joining us for this all-important discussion, he is a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, where we find ourselves today. He also is a political marketing expert. It's none other than Dr. Kobi Mensah. Doc, thank you for your time.
Thanks so much.
It's been a while, actually.
Yeah, it's been. We've been so busy at the university, COVID and so many other things. So we have to sort of take it easy, make sure that we are doing the best that we can.
Right.
So good to see you.
Good to see
very
you.
Sharp.
Good to see you too. We try.
Excellent.
Great. So let's dig right into the crucial matters. Recently, the NPP had its delegates conference.
Yeah.
What are your general reflections on that entire enterprise in terms of organization, in terms of content, what exactly they did at the delegates conference, and maybe some matters that detract from what they were looking at? I mean, look at the articles, for example, that they were supposed to deliberate upon, 90 to 38, and eventually not many seeing the light of day, a lot of it being passed on to the neck. What are your reflections on what was held?
All right, thank you. Let me firstly say that I've been following NPP for a long time. In fact, that is the singular party in my PhD studies. So I have my PhD is on NPP. 2000 elections, why? Because that was the novelty. The first time we saw mostly new things, come to play when you talk about party political organization. And with that background, you can attest that I've sort of know the party in detail from academic perspectives. I've done quite a lot of publications on NPP procedures, so I have, humbly I can say, some authority to actually talk about the structures. And let me say that in 2000, we saw quite a number of newness, from the NPP. And having spoken to people like Joke Obechebilam of blessed memory, obviously Oday Sykes, you know, what called Damboche. You know, there were quite a lot of exciting things that they talk about. And even from President Kufuor's perspective, they used to say due process. You know, that's one singular, you can say, attribute of the MPP, due process, democratic, you know, tradition. And so going forward, when you look at that foundation and you think that things are actually departing from what it used to be, you have to be concerned.
Is that what you see?
Of course.
There's some
of
departure
course.
from
absolutely.
what the party used to stand for?
Absolutely,
absolutely,
absolutely. And I think that I'm not the only one saying it. Quite a number of observers, you know, whether they're media observers, academics, or even ordinary, you know, Ghanaians, can tell you that the party is gradually departing from what it is or from what it used to be. And if we do not be concerned, or we do not become concerned about that, I think that it goes a long way to affect our democracy. Don't forget, it is something that actually culminates to the national, you know, political system. And so we have to be concerned and talk about it. And that's why I put that in my what do you call it, in my piece that you actually, you know, refer to. Because I think that there were quite a lot of things that didn't seem well and didn't actually go according to the due process that the political party NPP actually talk about. And that's why, you know, that particular concern.
Doc, so why do you feel this departure seems to be happening? And what are some of those that you've seen in most recent times?
Yeah, I think that the people have become, you know, increasingly, you know, personal. They put forward their own ambitions ahead of states, so ahead of the party. Personal, yeah, exactly. Personal interest, you know, if I should put it, you know, over the general well-being of obviously the country and of the political party or the political system that they lead. And as a result, it's making them do things that they don't realize that it's a counter to the very principles that they actually claim to hold on. And that's why some of us are a little bit concerned. Because we see that when you talk about democratization, you expect a certain consolidation at some point. Right. And I'm sure that if you ask some of my colleagues in political science, they will tell you, you know, over the years, you know, you would expect that parties would be part of the developmental process for us to achieve democracy. Of course, it's a stakeholder approach. Voters do their best. We rally them to go to the polls, even though they're not satisfied with the delivery. No one can claim that we have actually, you know, realized what we call political dividends in this country. We're not. We haven't realized it yet. Voters always do their bit, going to the polls, listening to the political parties, what they have, whether they are telling us the truth or not, we listen to them. We go to the polls and elect them. Now, when they get into power, they decide to do what they want to do. Right. And that is not fair. It's not a fair situation at all. And so we have to be bold to tell the political parties that you cannot take the people for granted just because of your personal interest. We have to, you know, restrict ourselves within the confines of the interest of the state and of the political parties that they lead. And that's why some of us do what we do.
Okay. So you're talking of this departure from what is right or what the party has stood for. Let me find out whether you find this to also be feeding into that you know, trajectory of departing from the tenets, so to speak, of that political party. We saw in recent times there were, you know, what should I say, restrictions, basically, that those who might want to contest or would have interest in contesting the flag bearership position of the party should not mount banners ahead of, you know, in Kumasi ahead of the delegates conference. But what did we see? We saw a number of them with banners sprouting all over the place, and it took the assignment by the chief of staff of Simon Osaimens, the Ashanti regional minister, together with, I saw him with Sampine, the KMA boss, for them to collaborate and get rid of these. But we saw them there, and someone like Alain Chamante's supporters, they complained that they were trying to abide by the rules, but they were missing out. Yeah. How do you respond to that and put that side by side with the fact that at the same event, some people were given pride of place in terms of opportunities to speak, and I'm speaking here about the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. Do you see this to be a bit of hypocrisy on the part of the party? Are they intentionally sidelining some people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could actually realize a certain, you know, attempt, deliberate attempt, to give a certain caliber of people the unfair advantage, at the particular grounds. I mean, just as you referred to, there was a directive that nobody mounts that. And that speaks to party discipline. I mean, how could the party itself, come out with a clear directive that nobody mounts that, the billboards, the banners, etc. Yet, there are some people who are actually allowed, as you said, pride of place, to actually do that. That speaks to the kind of things that we're talking about, the indiscipline, the idea that people, because of their personal interest, aren't actually following the party rules and the party traditions, which is very dangerous, because I feel that it would, at some point, we would not find that, we'll kind of water down some of these things, and then it seep into the broader national kind of electioneering, where people don't think that even by adding one vote, it's a serious crime enough. But they will go ahead and do, stuffing and all these things. So I think
but let me contest you here. Are we not seeing that already? I mean, we've seen it time and again. I mean, even in Parliament, there have been near fisticuffs and actually fisticuffs in Parliament just recently. We saw what happened between the 6th and the 7th of January when it had to come to a vote to elect a speaker. Aren't we seeing this in our
exactly? And that's the point I'm making. It's degenerated into that. I mean, would you ever thought about? I don't know. I mean, I witnessed, the Parliament that we had J.H. Mensah. Obviously, we have President Nado himself in Parliament. We had Jurase and Co in Parliament. Did you ever, I don't know whether you witnessed that particular Parliament, did you ever thought that, did you ever think that, we would have such a situation in Parliament? No.
If you ask me whether I would have expected it maybe in the, even maybe in the first Parliament, on the back of, well, maybe not the first, the second Parliament,
yeah.
On the back of some of the rancor and the fact that in the first Parliament, the opposition
there was only,
was
only
not
NDC.
even in the picture.
That's right.
That. So you would expect that maybe moving forward.
That's correct.
But in the 8th Parliament, now that took me by surprise.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. We are gradually degenerating into that kind of indiscipline nationally, because we're not, in the local parties, we're not putting our foot down for people to obey the processes and to do what is right. We're taking a lot of things for granted, and that affects the national polity. And that's why I'm saying that it is not good for us to sit down and watch them unconcerned. You hear people say, oh, it's just for politics, just politics. And I said, wow, that does not mean do the wrong things. That does not mean that you have the justification to do the wrong thing. But they will tell you, Doc, we're just doing politics. That's not acceptable. Politics doesn't mean do the wrong things. It means that obey the rules of democracy, the democratic tenets. You have to, spell it out, and once you've spelled it out, everybody's supposed to obey it. If they don't obey it, what's the penalty? We don't have some of these things going forward, and then we see them, trampled over. Look, if you look at the way, and they're talking about why they should actually elect their flag bearer 2 years, down the line, because it would afford them space to solve, problems that actually arise after the election. But that's exactly the kind of thing that they do, that people become so peeved that it makes it difficult for you to mend differences. I mean, if someone goes into elections and they feel that the platform was equal, there was an equal playing field, the rules were clear. Exactly. Why should it take someone 2 years before they come on board? I mean, once the election is declared, they would go ahead and then, congratulate the winner and say, okay, I'll bring my team back into the party for us to move forward. After all, you're going to fight a common enemy. But if people feel that they have been hard done by, without having a clear-cut rules that is actually governing everybody, without knowing that, yes, there was an equal playing field, then of course they're going to be very peeved. They're going to make it ungovernable for you to actually enjoy your leadership, and you're going to, in the end, lose the election that you actually...
That is not going to endure...
to the benefit of the... Exactly. Exactly.
Right. So very quickly on this point, I just want you to be very brief, because I'm actually digressing a bit. But this duopoly of NPP and NDC, and again, we'll be talking about breaking the AIDS, and even we're talking about that because we've had a system where it's 8 years for the NDC, 8 years for the NPP, 8 years for the NDC, and all of that. Do you feel maybe we should get to the point where we have a counterbalance, a countervailing force, like a political party that can threaten or even kick out these two parties before we'll get them sitting up to do some of the things you're talking about? Do you feel we need that?
Well, I don't think that the kind of political system we have is set up for that. That's my feel. Unless we change it, you know, because in most regimes or most, you know, countries that actually have first past the post, it's very difficult for you to have a third force. Right. So I keep telling people that if we're going to have a third force, that we want to establish the PR, the proportional representation, where people can actually vote for preferences, you know, and then we can actually get some other appreciable vote for other political parties for them to actually go into parliament. Yeah. But if we have first past the post, there's no way you're going to have a third force.
So hypothetically,
very difficult.
If it were possible, hypothetically, and it's not impossible, so to speak.
No, it's not.
Hypothetically,
it's not.
If it were that possible, would you say that is what it would take to get these two parties to
perhaps
sit up? Because,
yes.
I mean, right now, it's obvious they're taking us for granted.
Absolutely. I mean, perhaps yes. I mean, if the other political parties, and don't forget, it's also part of those games that they play, mafia, you know, sponsoring people to counter other people, and that's what is making it difficult. If the other political parties can be on their own, solidly on their own, perhaps they can actually challenge the strength of these two parties, and perhaps it will make us, you know, be alert. But of course, let's also look at the other side. We thought that if we have a hung parliament, you know, things could be better. Well, we have a hung parliament. What's happening? You know, so I think that the key point is being disciplined. Whether we have a duopoly or we have a multi-party, we need to have party structures that have commitment to discipline and saying that the rules are here. If you flout it, you get punishment, regardless of who you are. But here is the case: we have political parties who are making exceptions for people, and they don't see that as a serious issue. They see it as, oh, we're playing politics. We just want to be expedient.
In the last election in 2020, we saw some of those, and it cost the party.
Of course.
Look at the Fomena situation.
Yeah. So in the end,
the member of parliament who is now second deputy speaker.
That's right.
I mean, look at his situation going independent, and now basically arm twisting.
And so many other people have lost their seat. Why? Because the party was not disciplined enough to make sure that they're giving people a fair chance, and to make sure that when people are not satisfied with the processes, they have the right structures to actually deal with them. I always say that our political parties are wrongly set up. Why would you want to give the leadership of the party to the presidential candidate to be a de facto leader? Immediately someone is selected as a presidential candidate, they become a de facto leader of the party. But that's wrong, because they have a key interest in winning elections. So imagine that during the primaries, you were not my support, you were not within my support base, you were supporting another candidate. But then you're now going to contest for parliamentary seat. You know, if you do not have the resources, I'm not going to be interested in your agenda to ask the party to actually support you with resources. I would rather take resources to those I felt were my support bases. And that's what leads to the parties, you know, getting their MPs kicked out, because they are not in the good books of the one who is the flag bearer. If the party chairman and the party general secretary are the ones who are controlling the party, the real leaders of the party, they look at the party's interest and say, hang on, you go fight for your presidential candidacy, but we also have to ensure that we win our number of seats in parliament.
Right.
It's not happening.
Right.
And so these are some of the issues.
The party chairman only takes over after election, and if there's a loss,
that's the thing.
Then the party it reverts.
And that's why I say that you do not need 2 years down the line to market your candidate. Right. The party, as a functional institution, supposed to be on the road 24/7, whether you're in government or not. And so, if the party is working, and you're also working, and when you go to England and other places, they call it, like, for example, they say the Parliamentary British, Labour Party, or the Parliamentary, Conservative Party. The Parliamentary Party is different from the party, that is, out of Parliament. And that is not to say that they are completely different entities, but the Parliamentary Party see itself as working in Parliament, right, of course, to the benefit of the larger party. So it's some sort of
continuum, which is what we're not seeing.
That's the thing. So right, you need to have some sort of a separation and an integration at the same time, where the party has to separate itself from the members of Parliament because certain things are not, you should be able to do so. Where they have to come together, you should be able to do so. But we have put our powers in the hands of the presidential candidate. we keep complaining that the president of the country has too much power. What about the presidential candidate? They have too much power.
Right.
You know, they have too much power. They decide who become, you know, part of your inner circles, of course. Why? Because they are the ones who go out for the money. And the parties aren't doing anything. So for me, our parties are wrongly set up. And that is what is actually giving us all these sorts of problems. Okay. They can't, you know, tell, you know, the vice president's support bases that you can't mount your billboards, etc., because we have actually given a directive. But they know that he holds power. And so they couldn't actually be forthright with him. But they could actually say that to other candidates, Boache Jako, you know, Akotose, Chairman, because they do not have the power now. You know, so I think that we have to look at some of these things and mend them, you know, in the political parties if we want to have a proper democracy. Because don't forget, the political parties are one of the key stakeholders in the democratization project that we're on. And if they're not properly set up, we're going to get any better in the democratic systems as we want.
So let's look at this. Breaking the 8. Can the MPP break the 8, first of all? And what would it take for them to do so? Yeah. What are the crucial elements to look at?
Of course, it's not impossible. I mean, for me, coming from, you know, my background, you know, political marketing, we believe that, you know, parties go into elections with at least 3 elements. You're talking about the candidate, you're talking about the party itself, you're talking about the policy. Obviously, embedded in them is the ideology. The ideology actually, you know, sort of pin all these 3 together. But the crucial part of the equation within the political marketing frame is the voter, right? So we say that it's no longer the ideology at the center, but the voter. What does the voter want? You know, that's what is at the center. So the party is organized in itself in the know that the voter wants a particular style of governance. The voter wants a particular policy. You know, the party is choosing a flag bearer in the know that the party, the people, the voters want a certain attributes, you know, that they want to vote for. The party is actually pulling the policy ideas together because in the know that the voter want a certain deliverables. Now, so I asked myself a simple question. You govern in 8 years, and you're going back to the people and say, I've governed 8 years, I want you to give me another, you know, 4 years, breaking the 8. With what? That's the key question.
And maybe at this juncture, it is key to mention that in 2016, the win was, some would say, up to 1 million votes. It's around 800,000 plus. When it comes to 2020, it was whittled down to about 500 to 600,000 votes, which means that some net losses have been made, but that is still enough to win an election, I mean, in 2024. Whether or not whoever is selected as flag bearer can get that is another question altogether. But you would see that, as is to be expected, the gains that were made in 2016 have been eroded. I mean, we can even see it in Parliament, where there's been a net loss of about 42 seats in Parliament. Yeah. So you put all of that into perspective and look at it. Can they do it?
That's right. So when if you split the contest into 2 different, the parliamentary, which is very much local, and the presidential, which is national. Now, the list of the 3 of these factors that I talked about, obviously, people have already, you know, tasted your governance. You know, they've had a fair idea of what you stand for the past 8 years. And don't forget, you know, they have a very fresh memory going into that election. So for you as an incumbent, you have fresh memories in the minds of the voter. That of the opposition has about 8 years that has elapsed, all right, whether they did fantastically or not. Sometimes people can barely evaluate. And I always say that governments always perform better when they're out of power. Right. Yeah, because that's where you have the now government messing up, and then you're comparing that with it and say, oh, I thought the other one was better. Meanwhile, when the other one was there, you were complaining. Right. So you have a fair idea of evaluation based on the current, you know, performance, and then the previous, and then you're doing your evaluation there. Now, when you have a very fresh memory of what your governance was, and you're asking the people to actually vote for you, with the same player, what else are you going to tell them differently? That's my point. That's my question.
But in this instance, you can say that Nanado is, and he's made it clear that he's going to step aside, but he wants to hand over to a party member.
That's the point. So my argument is, if Ghanaians think that this particular administration has really discharged all what it said that it would do, and comparatively with the NDC very well, then of course it's not even a rocket science for any strategists to think that handing over to Bawumia can actually win the election. I mean, I'll give you a typical example. In Clinton's administration, one of the best years of America, when Clinton was delivering all these, employment figures, and the economy
was booming.
Yeah, is the economy stupid? That kind of, phrases that they were using. Why didn't, Al Gore win the election?
Yeah.
Ask yourself that question.
Of course, we have the infamous Florida case
Of course.
Thank
and of course, and the point is that Al Gore wanted to separate himself from Clinton because of Monica Lewinsky's case, right? But people thought that it was a stupid strategy because you were delivering success. Why don't you want to be part of the success message? Yet Americans kicked them off. They kicked them out, all right? So the Democrat didn't win the election, not because they performed badly, but because perhaps there was a voter fatigue. We've been saying Al Gore and Clinton back to back. Then you're going to have another 4 years. Sometimes the voters want new faces. One of the things that you could actually look at in 2000 elections, we have had PNDC, NDC for so long, 19 years, same faces on TV. Sometimes people want to see fresh faces. They want to see what other people can do, fresh ideas.
So what do you suspect in this instance? It is a possibility that the aids could be broken.
They can, but a lot of conditions.
What would it take? And for example, as you situate that briefly, I want you to also look at the Bawumia Alan Chamating thing. If you'd noticed, at the delegates conference, there was rapturous applause when Alan Chamating, entered the scene. Similar for the vice president when he took the stage and spoke. You've spoken about the fact that, well, he had the advantage of speaking. But when you compare these two heavyweights, Alan Chamating has been there. In 2007, he ceded to Nanado, saying, I'll not go for the runoff, let him go and all of that. People feel Nimreni, it is his time. Others also say the vice president, Dr. Bawumia, has accounted very creditably for himself. So they have to weigh that there are those who go to the Dumbo tradition bit, there are those who say it is time for the Ashantis again, and all of that. When you consider all of these, which of these two would you feel has the upper hand or the possibility of leading the party, and what would the consequences be?
I mean, in all these equations, who counts? The voter. Whether it's a Dumbo tradition or, what do you call
Ashanti,
they don't count. They don't count. And that's why I was telling you that in the modern era, we're talking about the voter, not the ideological positions. So the voter is the one that counts. Is the voter satisfied that whoever was on the ticket and whoever said that I could do A, B, C, D, have they discharged their duties to the satisfaction of the voter? If the question is no, or the answer is no to that question, then why present that candidate again? All right, for me, saying that Alan Bawumia pairing, I will ask you the question, is that what the voters want? You can use that to satisfy your party people, to sort of bring unity, I agree.
But can it satisfy Ghanaians?
That's the point. That's what you're looking at. And are Ghanaians satisfied that all that, the platform that Bawumia stood on, and he's a fantastic guy. For me, a young guy, and we have always been talking about having young people in the seat. And I agree perfectly on that. Amazing guy. But the point is, you haven't delivered. We have to be straight. They
haven't delivered?
He hasn't. I mean, all the platform that he mounted one platform, one singular platform, economic emancipation. Taxation to production, have we had it? The question
I mean, everyone will remember those. How many were they? The questions he posed
to
the Mahama administration time and again.
Yeah, exactly. To Emisata.
Well, Emisata.
And then later Setekwe.
Time and again. And that is one thing, because most people look at him and they say, okay, you say digitization and digitalization. Yes. And you say the economy must grow through these. But that was not the platform he came on. For me, in that election was a middle class election. Right.
The middle class rallied absolutely behind Bawumia. We all believed in him. I mean,
Don't you believe in that anymore?
We believed in that, but I don't. I don't anymore.
You believed in it, but
I
you don't
believed
believe
in them.
in it
I
anymore.
thought that he could do it. I mean, all those things that he was talking about, and not only myself, quite a lot of my colleagues actually trusted, and they believed that it could happen. It didn't happen. And then you know, as marketers will talk about stealth marketing, you nicodemously move on to another, platform which is digitized. And I tell you what, any of us can actually do that, because Silicon Valley, when you go there, all these tools are there. I mean, into IT. I mean, I do sort of IT stuff.
Right.
And look, these solutions are there. Anyone can implement them. And I'm not criticizing him that it's a fantastic thing, and I am #1 fan of digitalization. But that was not the concern of this country. The concern that you were brought, to the ticket was about the economy. And you remember the last election when NDC selected, Professor Jane. Everybody was like, he's not an economist. How can he battle Bawumia? But Bawumia has left the economic platform long ago.
Right.
He doesn't talk about economy anymore.
There was no contest.
No, of course
no one
not.
was filling
He's
that
left
space.
that platform. The platform that President Nana stood on was free SHS, social intervention. You can argue that he delivered it, whether to your satisfaction or not. He did it. But for me, that wasn't the best that they could do. I was not for free SHS, and I had always spoken against it, that it was a wrong approach. You need a means testing plan to wean off some people like myself. If I had my son in SHS and you're saying that it's free, why should it be free for my son, for example? I have to pay. But they had it wrongly because political expediency. Of course, he stood on corruption. I don't think that...
populism, so to speak.
Exactly. I don't think that the president delivered on corruption. He didn't. And not me. A lot of people have actually said that, all right? And Bawumia stood on economic. I mean, the platform he stood on is what we're going to judge him on.
Right, it's clear. I don't want us to digress too far, because once we bring in free SHS and other things, it will take us way into different arenas. But focusing on the two once more, I just want a straightforward answer in maybe some 30 seconds. Bawumia versus Allen, whom do you see coming up tops?
No, I mean, I'm very clear on that. Look, I feel that from all the things that...
If you can't say who you feel coming up tops, at least whom you...
Yeah.
If you have to choose.
Yeah.
If you're a delegate...
In my opinion, I think that it's much more for a candidate to supposedly break the 8 as and Bawumia. And I can tell you why, as I said, I do not see how the packaging of the message would be as a strategist, all right? Because you go to the market, and when there's a product failure, you want to remodel it, and you want to tell people that there's a new management. Companies don't go to the market with the same production or with the same product, thinking that the market will change its mind. The market will not change its mind. The market will be solid. They would evaluate you based on your performance, and if you didn't, they would not patronize you. And that's a clear message. Now, if by the end of this term, they can show amazing records, of course, why not? The market is dynamic. They would actually respond. But if we're exactly what we have, I'm afraid I don't think you would expect the market to react any differently. So
old wine, maybe new wineskin, or old wineskin, it will not work.
No, it's not going to work.
Okay.
You have to show the performance.
Right before we wrap the conversation, though, another tricky bit, and as you've digested this issue about whether the MPP can break the 8, it becomes crucial.
Yeah.
The MPP's own constitution talks about primaries, political primaries. I'm talking about the members of parliament and the processes they have to go through so that you can claim, I am the party's parliamentary candidate in X constituency. The majority leader, Osei Mensah Bonsu, at the delegates conference recently said, well, to ensure that stability and ensure that our party can be strong and face off with the NDC and other political parties, let our incumbent MPs go unfettered, uncontested. How do you feel about that?
That's really surprising, coming from a so-called Democrat, and of course he's a minister.
But how surprising? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How surprising would it be? Because in the 2020 election, I mean, he himself.
He's been saying this.
He himself and others, they called for same. So
exactly. That's why I'm saying
you?
it's surprising coming from him as a crusader for that. And the reason being that he's a minister of parliament. Parliament is one of the symbols of democracy, right? Yeah, Minister of Parliamentary Affairs. It's one of the symbols of democracy. You want to be seen championing the principles and tenets of democracy. If, for example, the president tells you that, I feel that I'm doing very well and we're on course for economic emancipation. As a result, I want to change the constitution for me to go for the next term. Would you be happy? That's the principle. You're saying that you are the only one who can actually perform so miraculously well that we should leave you in parliament. Who was born in parliament? As one of my friends in the political science, Esa Santo would actually say, no one was born in parliament. We are all outside parliament, and there is nothing like apprenticeship for parliament. People do not have anywhere to go and learn the skills of parliament other than going to parliament. So we have every right to kick you out. You cannot say you are the best brain that we have to ring fence you to be in parliament and to do what for us. I mean, you've been in parliament for God knows how long. What have you done for Swami? I mean, he's the MP for Swami, isn't it? Yeah. Can you go there and ask them what singular achievement, for example, he has done amazingly well that based on that we should ring fence him? I think some of these things are very, unfortunate coming from people, and especially people in MPP. I mean, you do not get these dialects, this conversation from NDC. And I keep telling them, look, you are gradually changing. NDC had rather become a formidable political party with due processes than MPP. Over the years, you check, you realize that everything that we thought NDC was in the past is what MPP is now. No rules, no principles, they just speak it now. And they still think that they are the most democratic party. But if comments like that coming from Cheche Minsabut, one of the people who have been in parliament for so long, you have to be worried. Because if an adult says that, I think I'm the best president, let's change the constitution, let me be there for the next time, how would you feel?
Good question.
Yeah.
Your final thoughts on all of these matters?
I think that we should not sit down and concern when these political parties are behaving the way they do. We have to be hard on them. We have to tell them in the face, because their activities, their behaviors actually affect the wider political system. And so if you think that it's an internal party affairs and people can do all the mafias that they want to do, in the end, they will come and do it on the national plane. And that's what we see every day out playing out the EC. Because people think it's just politics, it's just mafia, it's just you have to do whatever you have to do to win elections. That's not acceptable. You have to give a fair playing field for everyone. If you want the vice president to speak at a national conference, which is for delegates, then of course you need to give the other contenders, Boache Jako, Alan Chomante, Akotose, let them also speak, because they are also interested in the seat. Why would you want the president to be seated before a vice president enters? I mean, when did you ever see that? That protocol, you can't have that. I mean, the president is supposed to be the last to enter. But for people's personal interest, personal gains, they make the president come and sit. And then the vice president then come in, and then with all cheers. If you were not really strategizing in a way to give him the upper hand, what else would you, or what else would make you do that? So we need to tell them that it was not the best. The conference that they organized was not the best. It can deepen the divisions in the party. And that's the very reasons why it could take you years to mend the cracks in the party. You do not need 2 years to select a leader.
Right. So
that just in case it doesn't go well, you can resolve. If it doesn't go well, but everybody thinks that it was properly done, it wouldn't take even 1 week to resolve it, because the losing side will call the other guy and say, my friend, you won it on a very good note. But for what they're doing, that's what would take even years for you to resolve issues when it doesn't go well in the parties.
Well, Doc, it's been good.
Thank you for having me.
You've juggled my memory on
Thank
the
you.
NPP, and only time will tell how this goes. Once they elect a flag bearer, we shall see how that pans out.
If you have the time, just check on my thesis. You'll see quite a lot of stuff in there. And sometimes I ask myself, the party that I wrote about and talked about all these, I'm sure my next time when my examiner sees me is going to say, but you wrote all these things about this party. What is it? You know, that's the point. You know, but I feel that they have to do a lot more to capture the imagination that, you know, kind of enthralled the country, you know, in 2000. They've lost it. And for me, it looks like the NDC is really doing quite well. And we have to say it. They are now very, very formidable than what the NPP is doing. And they have to actually go back on the drawing board and check it.
Well, Doc, thank you so much for engaging us today. And we shall come back. We shall find time and come back, maybe sometime in the future, maybe when the MPP has a flag bearer, and you can give your take on what you see moving forward.
Excellent.
But thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you so much for coming.
This has been an interaction with Dr. Kobe Mensah, Senior Lecturer here at the University of Ghana Business School. He also is a political marketing expert. I'm Benjamin Akako. Thank you for joining for this conversation.
Let's take a quick break here on The Pulse. We're right back. Welcome back and many thanks for your company here on The Pulse. Let's do some other stories. And a 13-year-old boy has drowned in an abandoned Galamsey pit whilst trying to save his younger brother at the Patrinsa area close to Konongo in the Ashanti region. Residents say his death brings to 4 children who have drowned in the over 100 pits abandoned in the area in the last 3 years. Love FM's Erastus Asaridonko has been to the community. Here's his report.
This stagnated pool you see behind me has claimed the lives of about 4 children within the past 3 years. This is as a result of mining that has stopped for over 8 years now. In fact, there are about 100 of these trenches covered dangerously with water. The deceased, Emmanuel Abwaje, died trying to save his 9-year-old brother, Yao. His father saved him early enough, but lost the other brother. They told Love News what happened.
My brother, Abwaje, and I came here to fetch water. I tripped and fell into the water. He jumped in to save me, but I learned he drowned. He was not moving when I brought him out of the water. After rescuing him, I was told his senior brother, Abwaje, was also in the water, but I couldn't save him because I'm not a good swimmer. He was so weak when he was finally retrieved. I did not have any hope he was alive, though those around were saying he was still alive.
It took a number of local divers hours to rescue the boy, who died later on his way to the hospital. A member of the rescue team, Shadrach Ofori, said the people expected more from the police at Petrensa.
I'm very, very unhappy, all because when the incident happened, my brother-in-law went to the police station, at Petrensa police station, as a case. And we were expecting policemen or one of the policemen to come to the site where the incident was going. But from the time it was around 2 o'clock up to 5 o'clock, we did not see any policeman.
But the police at Petrensa say the people reported missing children, but they told them to conduct a search for them and report to the police later. The indigents are worried.
It was through the Galamsey people who came here looking for gold, and they used that of the excavator, and they dig down, deeply down, and after they got their gold, they're supposed to level everything. They did not.
Our leaders should help cover these pits. The pits are scattered all around, and all of them have been claiming lives. If government will help us, we will be happy, because the pits are killing children. These pits are everywhere, all around.
So the death of this 13-year-old boy in an illegal mining pit has shocked the Petrensa community. Indeed, they are waiting for a solution, and the solution lies in reclaiming these lands to prevent such needless deaths. Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asaredonko, Petrensa, Ashanti region.
Well, my colleague Erastus Asaredonko has done a number of work when it comes to this issue about Galamsey mining, amongst others, and thankfully he joins us on the line with more on findings in this particular area and this development. Erastus, many thanks for your company. Rather devastating story there that you've had to cover. But let's talk about these abandoned pits. Let's start with that. We're told about 100 of them. What exactly is the situation, starting with Petrensa?
So this is an illegal mining site, and there is a stream called Oweri, which is close to this site. And so they were mining along the banks of the stream, and they dug many of these pits along the stream. But these have been abandoned for a very long time, and they are filled with water and weeds. And so it's an underlying danger for children, even adults who will want to tread that particular area. And I understand that this is the fourth child who has fallen into these pits in the past 3 years. And that's what is getting the indigents worried. So there are many of them scattered across the community, but they have been covered with weeds and other things. So if you do not know that there are pits there and you fall in, that is it, that's the end of you.
And have there been any plans of a sort to ensure that these pits are covered or anything of the sort? Have we spoken to authorities? What are they saying about it?
Well, in fact, there are no indications that reclamation will be done anytime soon, across that area. In fact, we are learning of government's plans to do reclamation, but on the ground, there are no signs at all of whether that reclamation will be done in the community, and even where it's supposed to happen. There is no talk of that within the local authority circles.
Well, so this is Petrensa we're talking about, at least apart from this area. You've also done some extensive work in other areas. What's your findings, and which are these areas? I'm sure you'd want to walk us through them, and what you think ought to be done.
Well, so when you tour areas like Manso, where we have many of these pits abandoned over there, there are also death traps like that, and they have their own stories to tell about people who have fallen and died in these pits. In fact, when you go to areas like Manso, Tuntukrum, and its environs, this is a major threat to farming activities, for example, in those areas, because then farmers cannot cross some of these pits to their farms. You cannot build on any of these lands because there are pits, trenches, and other things in between. You cannot sell the land to anybody. And so these lands have become useless in these areas. You go to other areas like Tabostri and its environs, the Odahun forest. These are forest reserves that have been mined illegally for years. Pits and trenches are everywhere, uncovered. And so locals cannot use it for farming. You cannot use it for anything. It's a death trap to the people in there. So it will need a big plan to reclaim, an expensive plan, of course, because you will need bulldozers, equipment to go in there, and you will need to plant trees afterwards to remove some of the chemicals that have been infused into the soil.
Well, but just before I let you off, Erastus, this particular latest story that you've been reporting on involving this 13-year-old boy that drowned and wanting to save his little brother or sibling, I should say. What's the latest on it? We have an update. You've been interacting with family. What exactly have they been saying? Well,
so I had information that yesterday they went to dig a grave for the boy. They were expecting that the body will be released to them today to bury. As at the time I checked, he has not been buried yet. After this interview, I will check again to see if he has been buried. But basically, that's the end of it. The family are expecting that local authorities will come to their aid, at least try to fill some of these pits so that people can live in that area less dangerously. But then help is not coming from anywhere. And they are expecting that there will be a government plan or policy to do that.
Erastus Osari-Donko, I'll leave it here for now. Many thanks for your company this afternoon. That's my colleague Erastus Osari-Donko from Love FM bringing us details of that. But I have another story that we need to talk about. It's time for our Drive Safe campaign. And it took close to 30 minutes for bystanders to help rescue passengers from a mangled vehicle at Eputwoja in the Ashanti region. The driver crashed into a stationary vehicle at Ofoikrom. Well, the Eputwoja-bound urban bus failed brakes and crashed into a stationary Pregio bus, injuring the passengers in the process. Prince Apia was there. He reports.
Those are the sandals of the young lady who sustained serious injury from the accident. She was seated at the front seat when it crashed into the Pregio bus. Her leg got stuck in the mangled vehicle, and it would take a while with help from bystanders to unstrap the leg. The ambulance service arrived on time to get her and other passengers who sustained other levels of injuries to the hospital.
The driver failed his brake from a distance and even hit a tricycle. So when the traffic light was green, he had to blow his horn till we got here. He hit another van when he attempted to swerve the vehicles in traffic. I was in the car with my wife. She's now in the ambulance.
Prince Asari is the driver of the Pregio vehicle with registration number AW324-321.
I had parked by the road as someone alighted. Before I realized, the driver who was blowing his horn hit our vehicle. My head really hurts. I'll have to visit the hospital for checkup.
Abukari Yakubu, driver of the Evan bus with registration number GR784909, confirms his brakes failed.
We changed the brake bands not long ago, but when I stepped on the brakes, it failed. If it wasn't for the car parked along the road, I could have swerved to avoid this.
Many who escaped the near-death accident include this hawker.
I saw the car pacing in my direction at top speed, blowing his horn. I decided to jump. God saved me, else would have hit me first before hitting the car.
Residents and local leadership want a speed check installed on the stretch to prevent careless driving.
Road safety, we make sure that the road officers should do some hard barricades on the pavement for drivers not to skate along the road. They have done that at Bomso, and it will prevent some accident and incident from that place. So it's very good for them to do that here.
If not for the stones I sell here, the vehicles would have veered further off into the street. We have some big stones to spare if only they will allow us place them here. It can prevent all those drivers who drive on the verge of the road from doing so.
Maxwell Amankwa is the unit committee member at the Ofoikrom Municipal Assembly.
We are appealing to the MTTU to erect some of the checkpoint pillars so that those who want to move from their way to the pavement, it will check them.
And so it's obvious that these marbles, gravels and rocks being sold here on the edge of the Ofurukum Road might have saved the day, else this Prejo up in some residential facilities around and might result in other levels of casualties. My name is Prince Apia reporting from Ofurukum.
We'll take a quick break. We're right back. Welcome back. As a means of helping complement government efforts towards promoting agriculture, Valley View University is introducing a BSc Agri-Science program at its Techiman campus. The move, according to the acting vice-chancellor of the institution, Professor Peter Ejekum Boateng, is to help encourage more youth into the field of agriculture by introducing them to various scientific farming methods that will help increase food production in the area. There's more in the following report by Anas Sabit.
The acting vice-chancellor of the Valley View University, Professor Peter Ejekum Boateng, has indicated that the institution is introducing an agri-science program at its Techiman campus, which is aimed at encouraging more youth into the field of agriculture.
One of the things we have been focusing on is to create a niche in technology, health, and also in the sciences. And recently, Valley View has had an accreditation to offer agri-science. We already have agribusiness as we call it, and we have attached agri-science. This is for those who want to study pure agri.
The move, according to Professor Ejekum, will help complement the various government flagship policies in the agri sector.
The aim for this is to support the government's initiative to grow, to develop agriculture in the country. We run this program only here at the Techiman campus, agribusiness and agri-science, and we want to encourage our young men and women within this region to be more interested in agri, not just farming, but farming scientifically, so that the produce will be enough for everybody to enjoy.
Professor Peter Ejekum Boateng was speaking at the 27th graduation ceremony of the institution, held under the theme, Confronting a Global Pandemic, a Call to Excellence, Integrity and Service. He further charged the graduating class to be innovative in terms of creating startups to stay employed after school.
More importantly, we know what COVID has done to our societies, our communities these days. The challenge is enormous, but in spite of that, we expect our students to stand up, not become burdens in society. Now the government says they cannot absorb everyone. It doesn't mean our students will have to walk around looking at the faces of others to support them. They need to boldly take a step, take an initiative and start doing something on their own.
Guest Speaker and Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana National Petroleum Commission, Dr. Kofi Kodia Sapon, reminded the graduates to take advantage of technology to remain competitive in the job market.
Mr. Chairman, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the use of technology in all spheres of life has come to stay. You cannot afford to be illiterate in technology, else the world will leave you behind. The world is now in an era of digitalization. All jobs are moving to automation using software and applications, as well as artificial intelligence. I encourage you to arm yourself well with these so you can thrive in our contemporary world.
Best graduating student Paul Akurgu, a BSc nursing graduate, bemoaned the challenges graduates go through in accessing support for startups of the school and called on government to decentralize the support schemes.
Personally, I wish government should open more chances for us. They should come down to the local level, decentralization. They should get to the local level, because I learned they are national teachers. But from you to move from the local national level, you will be pushed out of people coming with personalities than you. They know people at some point that you don't know. So it should be decentralized to our level so that we can all participate. And graduates should also be willing to take the challenge, as I said.
Reporting for Joy News, Anas.
And that's how we wrap up today's edition of The Pulse here on the Joy News channel. There's more news when you log on to myjoyonline.com, from entertainment all the way to sports. We've got you covered on myjoyonline.com. Many thanks for being a part of today's show. I am MFR Pau. Many thanks. Have a good afternoon.